Hi guys, good afternoon and welcome to Your Stocks. I'm Pavitra, with me is Ekta, and Ekta, we have another day of not really too much happening, right, in the markets. Once again, very kind of dull day of trade, but for now in the past half an hour or so, we have seen a bit of a move higher. So pretty much just around 10-15 odd points in the red for the Nifty. The broader markets today for a change are more under pressure and underperforming.
Hi, Pavitra. Yes, absolutely. You know, that is something that we were pointing out, that it's the financials as well as the broader market stocks which are seeing pressure as compared to the Nifty and the Sensex. But while today might be quiet, all the action is post-markets today, correct? And we have Reliance Industries, which will be reporting its numbers post-markets. And separately, we have ICICI Bank, which will really set the tone for a lot of the corporate banks and what they might indicate from the entire banking space.
So Monday may not be so quiet.
that comes out tomorrow, along with even Yes Bank, which will be releasing its numbers. So we have a lot to watch out for in terms of trade when it comes to Monday. But nonetheless, we have a whole host of queries lined up in the next 30 odd minutes. So let's introduce our guests. We have Ashish Kyal, who's of Wave Strategy, joining in, and Shahina Mukadam, who is an independent market expert, joining in to answer all of your queries. Ashish as well as Shahina, welcome to the show. Well, let's start with the first question. We have Jitesh Kumar, who writes to us from Mumbai. He holds 100 shares of Mastech, which he's bought at around 1,000. He's a long-term investor, wants to know what he should do with it, whether he should hold or sell, given the company's good performance in Q4. Well, Shahina, you know, today we thought that there will be some amount of semblance of sanity when it comes to the IT space after the rundowns that we've seen post-Infosys, because of what the likes of HCL Tech, Mastech and Cyient reported. Do you think that this performance that Mastech reported yesterday would continue and it would be a long-term buy?
The numbers were good, and I believe the management has indicated that they are reasonably confident that this sort of performance will continue on over the next coming quarters by giving a very decent type of outlook. So I believe that valuations being extremely attractive, one can continue holding it even at current levels. So I would recommend a hold. If you see the valuation, that's for a, I would say now it's moving into more mid cap. It used to be a small cap till recently, so it's on that borderline. But I would think that numbers are good and the prospects remain pretty robust. Valuations are decent, so I would continue holding.
Okay, continue holding Mastech. And, you know, like you were pointing out, the valuations are just around 12 times compared to some of its peers, which trade anywhere between 17 to 25 times, right? So definitely much cheaper there. Ashish, your thoughts on Mastech? Of course, we saw a big run-up after the earnings. Do you expect it to continue?
Yes, indeed, because Mastech saw a double, triple bottom formation around 1480 levels. And I think the investor has invested at 1000 levels. So that's a very good level that he's in the stock. And here we are seeing a very strong breakout that happened yesterday. Today is a consolidation phase, but there is a possibility the target of the pattern is around 2200 to 2300. So that levels can be seen shortly in the stock. And on the downside, important support is lying at around 1630 levels. So I would definitely recommend to hold the stock. I think the entire IT space is going to consolidate and then break out. So if the time horizon is at least for a year and a half to 2 years, Mastech can even reach out to 3000 levels. So the overall pattern is suggesting positivity, but the holding period should be 1.5 years or more.
All right, can reach 3000 from the around 1760 that is at right now. That is on Mastech. The next query that we have coming in is Neeti Gupta, who writes to us. She is holding 100 shares of PNB at 50 and 20 shares of HCL Tech at 800 as well. She's a medium-term investor and wants to know whether to hold or sell this one. Of course, this is a good day to be talking about HCL Tech as well, right after its earnings. Shahina, coming to you on this. I mean, she's anyway sitting on a profit there. They reported quite an inline set. The management also sounds quite positive. Would you think it's a good one to hold?
Well, I would book profits because she is making profits in HCL Tech. The main reasons being, while the numbers were in line, we have to accept the fact that, revenues were lower. And if you see the guidance, it's actually factoring in, a slower growth even in FY24. So I would believe that the stock having corrected, it is stabilizing at current levels. But given the financials that are likely to emerge in next year, I think the stock will consolidate over the next 1 year rather than give you a outperform or even a market perform. So I would exit from HCL Tech and look at some other stock which is or other sector which is actually likely to perform over the 1 year, and then relook at it after a couple of quarters.
Okay, so that's on HCL Tech. Ashish, what would you recommend on this particular counter? Technically, 1046 is currently where you're getting the stock. 52-week high stands at 1156.
Yes, if you look at HCL Tech and compare with the peer like Wipro, I think HCL Tech has shown some kind of outperformance. Nevertheless, we can see the pressure because of the sector, and the stock is also under pressure over past few weeks. But it has a very important support of around 1,000 levels on the downside. So as long as 1,000 is intact, I think there is a possibility over short term we can again see the stock running up to 1140. And if that level gets broken out, then 1200 levels can be expected. So right now, hold the stock with 1000 as a strict stop loss and expecting a target of 1120 followed by 1200 levels.
All right, so that is on HCL Tech. The query also has PNB because they've mentioned that they have 100 shares of PNB bought at 50. So what would you recommend here, Ashish?
See, the buying price is not so far away. The stock is currently quoting around 48.15 or around those zones. So I think 50 is achievable, and once that level is crossed, I think the stock can move towards that 54 levels also. On the downside, there is a very important support which is lying at 46. So hold the stock for short term with 46 as a stop loss and expecting a target of around 54 on the upside.
Okay, a target of 54 on the upside. If you see, it's rallied quite significantly from that 52-week low of around 28 rupees for PNB. But fundamentally, Shahina, any recommendations on Punjab National Bank? Generally, most of the PSU banks have shown stability as of last quarter in terms of what they've been reporting.
Well, I would concur with Ashish that the investor continues to hold currently with the target of about 54, 55. Basically, I'm not too gung-ho on the numbers that they're likely to report. They haven't been really reporting very great numbers, but only think valuations are very attractive. At below 0.5 book price to book, I think valuations are there in their favor. Also, you have possible news, positive news likely if they have investments in subsidiaries of housing, also in their life insurance business with Canara Bank. So I think to that extent, there could be positive news triggers. So for that reason, I would continue holding.
Okay, all right. So that's on PNB, a positive outlook coming in on the fundamentals. We have another query now. Santosh writes to us from Pune with an investment query, wants to invest in State Bank of India, wants to know a long-term target price. Well, Shahina, if you are quite positive on PNB, then what would you think about the mother bank within the entire banking space, State Bank of India?
Well, of course, if anyone wants to be in PSU banking, SBI is the place to be in. At the same time, it's more of a portfolio stock. So I would always buy SBI in a staggered fashion. So to an extent, you can start buying now, but not everything, and keep, buying it at frequent intervals because there are some negative headwinds that are there. Interest rates are on the rise. The credit cost is going up. So to that extent, one needs to keep a close watch. Also, you have, the possible impact of these on the asset quality and, on the loan growth. So at the same time, I would buy currently some quantity because we already have the, operational numbers for the quarter, 5% plus type of growth in, they're likely to report 5% plus type of growth. I would say in their deposits, and loan also book is doing pretty healthy. So price to book at about 1.5 times. I would say that one can start buying, but buy it in a staggered fashion.
Okay, can start buying SBI in a staggered fashion. Ashish, technical call on SBI?
If you look at SBI, it's moving in a very broad range of 565 to around 500. But I think the overall banking space can start outperforming, and SBI has not outperformed so far. So I'm going to be optimistic over here. I am expecting it will break that range on the upside. 560 or 570 levels will be broken on the upside. The stock can head towards the 630 levels, which is the previous peak. And on the downside, important support for the stop loss can be around 520 levels.
All right, that is on SBI. Now we have another query coming in. This one is from Mihir, who writes to us from Dehradun. He holds 2,500 shares of Paytm, which he bought at 900 apiece. He says he's a medium-term investor and he wants to know whether he should hold or sell. Let me come to you, Shahina, on this one. There have been some brokerages which, are turning positive on this, are feeling like, at current levels, it might be a good price to buy. But he has definitely got in at around 900. So what would you recommend?
There are a lot of positive developments that are coming out in Paytm as of now. Of course, valuations one cannot really talk about because they still have to move into profitability. But the issue is that they are talking of moving with being EBITDA positive by FY25, which is a good news. Also, if you see what they have given us some indication of the Q4 numbers. So in Q4, they are talking of an average monthly transacting users increasing by 27%. And here, I think most analysts are talking of this sustaining over the next 2 to 3 years. So I think these are positive developments, and one can look at to move or to exit at higher levels, probably keep a target of 750 or 800.
Okay, all right. A target of 750 to 800 rupees on 197 communication. Remember, there was a Motilal report which came out which was positive on it. We need to take a short break, but we'll answer more of your queries on the other side. Stay tuned. Welcome back. Well, for the markets, it is Session. The negative is that the advanced decline ratio is on the declining side this afternoon. So we have around 1,500 stocks which are advancing, but over 2,000 stocks which are declining on the Bombay Stock Exchange. So there is some amount of trepidation on that. Just watch out for specific stocks on a week-to-date basis which have shown good moves. So case in point from the broader markets would be something like a Patel Engineering, which has gained around 20% on a week-to-date basis. The stock, which is currently trading at around 18 odd rupees, has seen good amount of traction both this month as well as this week. The other one would be something like a Titagarh Wagons as well from the railway space. That stock has picked up around 17% in terms of addition to its market cap on a week-to-date basis. The other one would be Nazara Technologies, which is up around 8% at this point in time. And it's gained, around 7.5% this week. Yes Bank, going into its numbers, is a bit weak. That stock is down around 1.8%. But we still have with us Ashish Kyal on the technical, Shahina Mukadam on the fundamentals to answer all of your queries this afternoon. Well, let's get to another question then. We have a query from Bihar where SAS3 holds 92,000 shares of Yes Bank with an average of around 14.8 rupees. Long-term investor wants to know a 2 to 3 year prospect of the company. Shahina, I just wanted to get your thoughts on this, considering the kind of downtrend that we've seen in terms of the numbers for Yes Bank, the stock performance. Do you think it's bottomed out and the worst is behind the bank, and say 2 to 3 years down the line, this could possibly be a good buy in hindsight?
Well, actually, I would say at current levels, it would be, beneficial to continue to hold. There could be an upside. I think the decline that we saw was, of course, because, if you see in the first 9 months, the provisions were pretty high. And actually, that was what has impacted the profit number. Now, the growth should be quite steady and good in terms of operationally. I think deposit growth is estimated around 14% and odd. So I think numbers should be pretty decent on the operational level. And also, if you see the valuation at just one-time book, it is pretty attractive. So I would continue to hold, given the fact that now you have good institutional investors also that are part of the bank. So I would continue to hold at current levels. One will continue to have to watch, what sort of asset book quality they report over the weekend.
All right, so let's wait by and see how those earnings really come from Yes Bank. Ashish, technically, would you think that this one is okay to hold?
From technical perspective, over short term, yes, we saw some bounce back from around 15 odd levels. It went to 17 and now showing some consolidation or pullback on the downside. So once it manages to reverse back above that 17 level, we can expect it to go towards 18.5. So I would recommend to hold for short term. Over the long term, we have seen the stock going all the way to 24, then correcting back to 14. So if the investor is okay with such kind of volatility with a sharp up move and sharp down move, then it's okay. Otherwise, you can also diversify into something like SBI or possibly Kotak Bank. Those banks can be a much more promising returns than Yes Bank, but the volatility is also a concern for me. In Yes Bank, over short term, I am optimistic for it to reach around 18.50.
All right, that is the view coming in on Yes Bank. Is willing to hold for 2 to 3 years. So that is the view coming in. But with that, let's move on to our next query. This comes in from Krish, who writes to us from Pune. He says he has 500 shares of Wipro, which he bought at 400, and he's holding this since 2020. He's a long-term investor and he wants to know whether he should hold the stock or sell. Shahina, he is sitting on a bit of a loss, and the mood with tech is really, been a little bit divided. Of course, the big ones did disappoint, but some of the mid-cap IT names have been doing well. For Wipro, how do you think it's likely to fare?
Well, it's been, a disappointing large cap IT stock in line with, a lot of other IT stocks. But I think for Wipro, analysts are expecting a dip in revenues, and I expect that, the numbers are not going to be that exciting. So to an extent, everything is factored into the price. I don't see too much downside. At the same time, I don't see why one needs to continue to holding the stock. The performance is likely to be lackluster. So I would switch. There are a lot of other sectors that are doing pretty, are doing much better. So in my view, it would be a better idea to switch from Wipro to some of the other sectors like FMCG, ITC. You have ICICI Bank, which will report report numbers. I think these are more, these are stocks that are likely to give better returns over the next 6 months to a year.
Okay, all right. Well, let's get to another question now. We have Karan who writes to us from Chennai, holds 500 shares of Nestle, which was bought at an average price of around 200 rupees. Medium-term investor wants to know what to do, whether to hold or sell that particular stock. I think maybe there could be some amount of change in the buy price. But in any case, what would your call be, Shahina, with regards to Nestle? On a longer-term basis, would you possibly recommend holding on?
Absolutely, I agree with you, Ekta. The buy price seems like unbelievable. And if that is the buy price, then there is no reason to, even question whether one needs to continue to hold. Unless, of course, the investor wants to book his capital gains or, maybe diversify his portfolio. But at the same time, I would say that the return that one has got in the last 5 years, it's almost up, multiple times for such a large cap stock. I don't think that sort of return is likely over the next, say, 2 to 3 years, simply because valuations are very high. If you look at turnover to market cap, it's about 10 times. You have your P ratio, which is in the 80s. So I don't think that sort of upside you can expect. At the same time, balance sheet is so strong, good management, good products. I mean, what more can you ask for?
Okay, that is the fundamental call on Nestle. Ashish?
Maybe the buy price was 20,000.
Yeah, I'm sure that doesn't sound quite all right over there. But Ashish, that said, how do you think this one looks on the technicals?
See, on the technical, we can see very smart recovery from 18,000 levels in Nestle over the period of 1 year. It has done exceptionally well. The overall sector FMCG has been outperforming. And I think Nestle can head towards the level of 22,000 as well on the upside. So continue to hold here. On the downside, the support is around 19,800. So keep that as a support or a stop loss for yourself and expecting a target of 22,000.
Okay, target of 22,000 on Nestle. That stock has given returns of around 2% in the past 6 months odd. But let's get in another query. We have Rakesh who writes to us from Delhi, holds 1450 shares of Vedanta and at 308 rupees and 700 shares of Rallis India at 196. He's a long-term investor, wants to know what to do with both these counters. Well, Ashish, your call technically on Vedanta from the metal space and Rallis from the agri space.
See, if you look at the overall metal space, look at Vedanta or Tata Steel, Hindalco, all of these stocks are just consolidating or rather correcting over the period of last 1 to 2 months. We can clearly see that. But having said that, Vedanta has formed a very important low at around 260. It managed to bounce back every time it reaches there. And it's forming a triangle pattern with the possibility of a positive breakout. So I would suggest that continue to hold on to this stock with 260 as a stop loss and expecting a target of 320 on the upside once that 290 level gets broken out. So 320 can be the target and 260 is the stop loss on Vedanta over short term. And as far as Rallis India is concerned, yes, it has been a disappointing stock. Showed a very steep fall from 255 levels, went all the way towards 186, 187 on the downside. Showed some recovery from there. So I would hold on to this stock, but not expecting much from here. On the upside, possibly towards that 220 or 225, look forward to exit this stock. On the downside, maintain a stop loss of around 190 levels.
Okay, so that is on both of these, Vedanta as well as Rallis. Shahina, let me quickly come to you as well on what you think of these. I mean, metals, of course, have been moving to a lot of the global news flow as well, right? Do you think from a slightly longer term perspective, it's a good one to hold?
Well, I would say in the medium term, both look good. Vedanta as well as Rallis are holds. Rallis, of course, has been impacted because of higher raw material costs. And, rainfall, we don't know what sort of rainfall we are going to have this year, shortfall or a normal rainfall. So that would be a deciding factor on Rallis. But the stock price having corrected, I think strong management, strong balance sheet, one can hold. Now, Vedanta is a more difficult question. Things are looking better for the company now because they are bringing down the debt, and it's a very high dividend paying company. So anybody who is looking at high dividends, Vedanta is the stock for now. And of course, the rest, aluminium, oil, they're doing reasonably well as of now. So one can continue holding.
All right, got that. So that is on Vedanta and Rallis. And with that, Shahina, Ashish, we're going to thank you very much for joining us on the show today and taking out the time, as always, for speaking to our viewers and helping them with their queries. We leave the market absolutely flat. The sensex has moved into the green, so that's the good news. Just around 10 points lower on the Nifty right now. Big move seen in ITC. That one continues to move higher. You have Reliance, which has seen a move upwards ahead of its results. And some other names like Bajaj Finance also seeing a jump in trade. But with that, we're going to wind down on this edition of Your Stocks from Ekta, me and the team. Thanks for tuning in. Remember, you can always email us your queries and we will take them up with our experts. Stay tuned. Closing bell is up next for the final hour of trade this week.